She was not reckless. She was not careless. She was just a young woman who believed in the one person who told her she was safe. Kimberly Greer walked into that house on a Friday night, carrying nothing but trust. Trust in a man who had looked her in the eyes and said, "I'll be with you the whole time." But before that night was over, everything she had ever believed about love, loyalty, and the people who claimed to protect you was gone. And the silence that followed her home that night was the kind of silence that never really leaves. This is her story.
Before we begin, let me know in the comment where you're watching from. Would love to hear from you, and your support helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos.
Kimberly Greer was 22 years old. She grew up in a quiet suburb outside of Columbus, Ohio. The kind of neighborhood where people still left their porch lights on for each other, where kids played in the street until the sun went down, and where you genuinely believed that the world was mostly made up of good people. She was the second of 3 children. Her mother, Patricia Greer, always described her as the calm one. Kimberly never rushed anything, Patricia would later say. She thought things through. She was careful. And she was. Kimberly had always been careful. She was the kind of person who read a menu twice before ordering, who double-checked her car locks before going to sleep, who called her mother every Sunday morning without fail. She was studying communications at a local college, working part-time at a bookstore downtown, and slowly building the kind of quiet, steady life she had always imagined for herself. She was not the type to go to parties. She was not the type to put herself in unfamiliar situations with unfamiliar people. She was, by every honest account from everyone who knew her, the last person you would ever expect to end up in the middle of a story like this one.
But then she met Dixon, and for a little while, everything felt exactly the way love is supposed to feel. Dixon Harlow was 25. He worked in logistics, drove a clean car, always smelled like cedar and coffee, and had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in any room you walked into. He was charming, the kind of charming that feels effortless, the kind that doesn't announce itself, but just settles around you quietly until you realize one day that you've started rearranging your whole life to be near it. Kimberly met him at a mutual friend's birthday gathering about 8 months before that night. He asked for her number before the evening ended. He texted her the very next morning. She wasn't used to that kind of attention. She wasn't used to someone who showed up consistently, who remembered small details, what she ordered, what made her laugh, what songs she played on repeat during long drives. He was, she believed, the real thing. She was just in love. And sometimes, being just in love is all it takes to make you stop hearing the things you should be listening for.
For the first 4 months, things between Kimberly and Dixon were easy. That is the word her friends used when they talked about them together. Easy. He picked her up on time. He introduced her to his family. He was present in a way she hadn't experienced before, and she started to open up in ways she hadn't with anyone else. Her best friend, a woman named Leanne Portman, remembered how different Kimberly seemed. She was lighter, Leanne would later say. She laughed more. She stopped second-guessing everything for once. And Kimberly herself felt it too. She felt seen. She felt protected. She felt like she had finally found someone who matched her seriousness, her steadiness, her need for something real. So when things started to shift, when certain details began to feel slightly off, she didn't reach for alarm. She reached for explanations. Because that is what you do when you trust someone. You explain away the things that make you uncomfortable, because the alternative, that your instincts might be right, feels like too much to accept. It started when Dixon began introducing her to his friends. 2 men specifically, Miles Hargrove and Joe Weston. They had been friends with Dixon since high school, he told her. They were good guys. She would like them. Miles was loud in a way that felt performative, always the one making a joke at the edge of someone else's comfort zone, always watching to see how you reacted. Joe was quieter, but not in the way that felt thoughtful. It was the kind of quiet that felt like it was waiting. Kimberly shook both of their hands and smiled, and told herself she was being too sensitive. She had always been a little guarded around new people. That was just who she was. But there was one moment, one small moment during that first dinner the four of them shared at a burger place on Route 40, when Miles said something to her. It was meant to be a joke. Kimberly couldn't even remember the exact words afterward, but she remembered the feeling. She remembered looking down at her glass and thinking, that wasn't funny. And she remembered Dixon laughing. And she remembered telling herself it was nothing. It was nothing. It was nothing at all. It was a Thursday evening when Dixon first mentioned the party. He called her around 7, just as she was finishing a shift at the bookstore, and his voice was relaxed and warm the way it always was. "Miles is throwing something at his place Friday night," he said. "Nothing huge, just some people from our group. You should come." Kimberly paused. She was tired. She had a paper due the following Monday, and she had been looking forward to a quiet weekend. She told him that. He listened, and then he said something she would think about for a very long time afterward. He said, "I'll be there the whole time. You won't have to talk to anyone you don't want to. Just come. I want to show you off." She smiled at that. She almost said no anyway. She almost trusted the small, steady voice that was telling her to stay home, make tea, finish her chapter. Almost. But she thought about how she always avoided things, how she was always the one who played it safe and then wondered later what she had missed. She thought about Dixon's voice. She thought about how much she trusted him. "Okay," she said, "I'll come." That single word, that single ordinary word spoken in the parking lot of a bookstore on a Thursday evening is where this story truly begins.
Miles Hargrove's house was on a dead-end street about 20 minutes outside of the city. It was a gray Saturday evening when Dixon pulled into the gravel lot beside the house, and Kimberly could already hear the music before they were out of the car. It was too loud for a small gathering. There were more cars than she expected. The porch light was on, but the curtains were drawn, and through the windows the light inside pulsed and shifted in a way that made the house feel like it was breathing. She told herself she was being dramatic. She took Dixon's hand and walked inside. The air hit her first, warm, close, smelling of spilled drinks and cigarette smoke and too many people and not enough space. There were unfamiliar faces everywhere, people she had never seen, people who did not look up when she walked in, people who were laughing at things she wasn't part of. She stayed close to Dixon for the first 40 minutes. He got her a drink, something in a red plastic cup that tasted sweet and cold, and he stood beside her and talked to people and introduced her, and everything seemed, on the surface, completely normal. She started to relax. She started to think that maybe she had been wrong about her hesitation, wrong about Miles and Joe, wrong about all of it. She started to breathe.
And then Dixon's phone rang. He looked at the screen and said, "1 second," and stepped away. He was gone for a few minutes. When he came back, something about him was different. She couldn't name it exactly. His posture, maybe. The way his eyes moved when he looked at her, landing briefly and then sliding somewhere else. He refilled her cup without her asking. He laughed louder than he had been laughing. He checked his phone twice in the next 10 minutes. Miles appeared at his elbow, and the two of them exchanged a look, the kind of look that people think is invisible but isn't, the kind that carries a whole conversation in a single second. Kimberly watched it happen. She felt the first real thread of unease pull taut in her chest. She told herself it was paranoia. She told herself she had spent too much time in her own head. But she also noticed that Joe was now standing closer to her than he had been. And she noticed that Dixon, without saying anything, had taken one small step away. That was the moment things started to feel different. Not wrong exactly, not dangerous exactly, just different in a way that her body registered before her mind caught up. About 2 hours into the party, Kimberly's drink was running low, and she asked Dixon if they could find somewhere quieter to sit. He nodded and said, "Yeah, actually, Miles said we could use the room upstairs. It's away from all the noise."
She hesitated. The upstairs of someone else's house, away from the crowd, away from the front door? Something in her did not want to go. "Can't we just sit outside on the porch?" she asked. Dixon smiled, that specific smile she had come to associate with patience, with reassurance, with the feeling of being handled gently. "The porch is full," he said. "Come on, it's just quieter up there." Miles appeared beside them almost immediately, as though he had been waiting for the signal. "Yeah, it's just the back room," he said. "Couch, TV, way more comfortable." Joe materialized on her other side, not pushing, not grabbing, just present in a way that made stepping toward the stairs feel like the only available direction. She didn't realize it in that moment. She would only understand it clearly later, sitting under fluorescent lights in a hospital, replaying every second. But she was being moved, gently, carefully, the way you move something fragile when you don't want it to resist. She had trusted the wrong people. That is what made it so hard to process afterward. She hadn't gone to that party with strangers. She had gone with the man she loved. She had held his hand on the way in. She had believed his smile. She had trusted every single word out of his mouth, because for 8 months, none of those words had given her a reason not to. And that trust, that ordinary, human, completely reasonable trust, was the very thing they used against her. If you are still watching right now, type the words "stay safe" in the comments, because this story is a reminder that none of us are as far from this as we want to believe. Type "stay safe," because awareness is the one thing that costs us nothing and protects us more than anything else. What happened in that back room upstairs does not need to be described in graphic detail for you to understand the weight of it. The facts are the facts, and they are heavy enough on their own. Kimberly had been drinking, not excessively, not recklessly, just the drinks that were handed to her by the man who told her she was safe. Investigators would later confirm that the drinks she consumed that night contained a substance she had never agreed to take and had no knowledge of. Her memory of the later part of that evening was fractured, full of gaps that felt like standing at the edge of something and not being able to see the bottom. She remembered music. She remembered the ceiling. She remembered feeling suddenly like the floor was somewhere above her. She remembered Dixon's voice, distant and strange, and she remembered trying to ask him something and the words not coming out the way she meant them. She remembered feeling afraid in a way that had no shape, no frame, no exit. And she remembered, somewhere in the middle of all of it, the understanding that the person she had counted on to protect her was not protecting her. He was the reason she needed protection. In that room, with the door closed and the music loud enough downstairs that no one would have heard her, even if she had been able to find her voice, Kimberly Greer learned something that no one should ever have to learn. That sometimes the most dangerous place you can be is right next to the person you trusted most. Think about that for a moment. Really think about it. Because this is not a story about a stranger in an alley or a predator in the dark. This is a story about a dinner table, a shared laugh, a hand held on the way into a party. Research shows that in the overwhelming majority of cases involving drugging and assault, the perpetrator was someone the victim already knew, someone they had reason to trust. That is what makes cases like Kimberly's so difficult and so important to talk about. The danger so often does not look like danger. It looks like someone who knows your coffee order. It looks like someone who remembers your mother's name. It looks like the person sitting right next to you. Kimberly left that house in the early hours of the morning. She didn't have all of the pieces yet. She wasn't even sure in those first hours exactly what she was feeling. She sat in the front seat of an Uber she didn't remember calling and watched the streetlights pass overhead and felt something she couldn't name. Not quite pain, not quite fear, not quite grief, but something that contained all three and more.
something that sat in her chest like a stone she didn't know how to put down. She went home. She sat on the edge of her bathtub. She stared at the tiles on the floor for a very long time. She thought about calling her mother, and then she thought about what she would say, and she couldn't find any words that fit what had happened, so she said nothing. She sat in the silence, and she tried to make sense of the night, tried to reassemble the timeline, tried to find the moment when she could have done something different. That is what trauma does in the beginning. It turns inward. It asks the wrong questions of the wrong person.
Her friend Leanne noticed something was wrong the next day. Kimberly had not responded to a single text. Leanne drove to her apartment and knocked until Kimberly opened the door. What Leanne saw stopped her cold. She looked like someone I didn't recognize, Leanne would later tell investigators. She was sitting on her couch in the same clothes from the night before. She was completely still, and she looked at me and she said, "Something happened." And that was all she said for a very long time. Sometimes the loudest pain is the one that no one hears, and sometimes the person holding it doesn't even fully understand what they're holding yet. They just know it's heavy. They just know they are not the same person they were yesterday, and they carry it quietly, alone, in a silence that feels safer than the alternative, because speaking it out loud makes it real in a way that silence does not. It was Leanne who drove Kimberly to the hospital. It was Leanne who stayed beside her through every hour of that process. The medical examination, the questions, the paperwork, the long stretches of waiting in rooms with flickering fluorescent lights. Kimberly gave her account clearly and consistently from the moment she began. She remembered what she could, she reported what she knew, and the evidence supported her. Toxicology results confirmed the presence of a substance in her system consistent with what investigators described as deliberate administration. Dixon Harlow was arrested less than a week later. Miles Hargrove and Joe Weston followed within days. What emerged during the investigation was something that did not shock anyone who had been paying attention to patterns like this, but devastated everyone who heard it nonetheless. This had been coordinated. It had been planned before Kimberly ever walked through that door. The invitation, the reassurances, the drinks, the movement upstairs, none of it had been accidental. She had been targeted by people who knew exactly what they were doing. The trial was long and difficult. Kimberly sat through it. She answered every question she was asked. She looked at the men across the courtroom who had once been introduced to her as friends of the person she loved, and she did not look away. Her mother, Patricia, sat beside her every day. Leanne sat on her other side. The verdicts, when they came, were guilty across the board. Dixon Harlow received a sentence of 18 years. Miles Hargrove and Joe Weston each received significant prison terms of their own. The courtroom was silent when the final verdict was read. Kimberly did not cry. She had done her crying in private in the months leading up to that day, crying in her car, crying in the shower, crying in the early hours of the morning when the weight of what had happened was impossible to ignore. In that courtroom, she was something else entirely. She was standing. She was present. She was still here. In the 2 years that followed, Kimberly Greer did something remarkable. She started talking, not recklessly, not to process pain publicly, but with intention, with the specific, deliberate goal of making sure that other young women heard what she had learned. She spoke at her college. She spoke at community events. She worked with a local advocacy organization that provided support to survivors of drug-facilitated assault. She told her story, carefully and clearly, every single time someone asked her to. And every time she finished, she said the same thing. She said, "I did nothing wrong. I went to a party with someone I loved. I trusted him. I was careful. And none of that protected me, because the threat wasn't out there somewhere in the dark. The threat was sitting right beside me.
So please, pay attention. Trust your body when it tells you something feels off. Never let anyone take your drink from your sight. Always have someone outside that room who knows where you are. And if something happens to you, please tell someone. Not because it will fix everything, but because silence never fixed anything at all.
Kimberly's story is not unique. That is the part of this that should sit with you. According to data from the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, the vast majority of sexual assault survivors knew their attacker before the assault occurred. Drug-facilitated cases are among the most underreported, precisely because the victim often doubts their own memory, doubts their own account, wonders if they misunderstood something or misremembered a detail. Predators count on that doubt. They design situations to produce it. And that is exactly why stories like this one need to be heard out loud, in full, without softening or looking away. Let me ask you something directly, because I want you to sit with this for a moment before you scroll away. If this had been someone you loved, your sister, your daughter, your best friend, would you want her to know the warning signs? Would you want her to know what this can look like before it happens, not after? Would you want her to know that a charming smile and a reassuring voice and 8 months of consistent, attentive, believable kindness can still belong to someone who is not who they appear to be? I think you would. I think if it were someone you loved, you would want her to have every piece of information available. So share this video, because that is what this is. This is information. This is a warning dressed up in a true story. And the person sitting next to you on their phone right now might need to hear it.
Do you think there were warning signs that Kimberly missed? Looking back at everything, Miles's comment at dinner, the way Dixon stepped away, the strange look between the two of them at the party. Were the signals there? And if you had been in her position, trusting someone completely, hearing the words, "I'll be there" the whole time, do you honestly think you would have seen it coming? I want you to be honest with yourself about that, because the answer, for most of us, is no. And that is not a failure. That is just what trust does. It lowers the walls we built for very good reasons. It makes us human. And sometimes, in the hands of the wrong person, it makes us vulnerable. Before we go, if you learned something from Kimberly's story today, if something in this video made you stop and think, please share it. Not for the views, for the person who needs to hear this. For the young woman who is right now in a relationship with someone who makes her feel exactly the way Dixon made Kimberly feel. She might not know yet what she is in, but she might know something feels off. And maybe hearing this will give her the language to trust that feeling before it's too late.
If this story moved you, share it. You never know who is watching this right now and needed to hear that they are not alone. You never know who has been carrying something in silence because they were afraid no one would believe them. Share this so that they know that speaking the truth, even when it costs you everything, is always worth it. And if you have ever been betrayed by someone you loved, by anyone, in any way, just know that what happened to you is not a reflection of your words. It is a reflection of their choices. And your story does not end where they try to end it. Subscribe for more real stories that need to be told. This community exists because these stories matters, because the people inside them matters. We'll see you in the next one.